I read this book, so you don't have to. In this video, I'm going to explain why you shouldn't believe 90% of what you read in Great at Work. I'll tell you the 10% that are useful, so you can just watch this video, get the useful bits, don't waste your time reading the book, and move on with your life. Let's get into it. The byline to this book is Why Some People Succeed at Work and Others Don't. Sounds a catchy title, right? But not so fast. I'm going to talk about the big 3 issues I have with this book, which means, in my opinion, 90% of it is trash that you shouldn't listen to. But there are 10% of little nuggets that were quite useful, so I'm going to share those as well. The first thing was not spreading yourself too thin. Now, as someone who is chronically terrible at saying no to things, this is quite useful advice. And he has this specific quote which I really like when it comes to the number of tasks you should take on. As few as you can, as many as you must. I think that is beautifully simple, and it's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind every time you get an opportunity and you kick reactions to say, yeah, sure. Just step back and think on that quote. The second one then is thinking about value. Now, considering this is a book about success, he doesn't really talk about value as much as he really ought to. But there is a little bit that's useful here, which is that when you are coming up with goals and objectives, instead of starting thinking about the thing you want to achieve, think about the value you want to make. And he describes value as being the impact you make to others. And then work backwards on the actions you need to take, and therefore the objectives and goals you need to set from there. The last one is the one I enjoyed the most. This was seek diversity, not just talent. And I'm quoting from the book there. Now, I really like this because, as you guys know, I'm a huge advocate of diversity, and I think that it's really, really important to have a diverse range of backgrounds and opinions at a table, and to have that kind of healthy debate to get to the best conclusion. And there was a quote, a Kenyan proverb that he used that I really liked. Sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. And if you've ever tried to break spaghetti, you'll know that that's definitely true. And he touches a little on collaboration and how you can get people to work more effectively and provide them with a common goal to make that happen. So those are the useful bits. If that's all you've come to hear, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was useful. But before you go, hear me out on why I think that 90% of this book is not worth listening to. And it comes down to 3 things, because here on this channel we do everything in 3s. The first and most important thing is the underlying data set against which the whole of the rest of these conclusions were made. At first glance, all seems great. Sample size was 5,000 people for the study, and he sampled a range of professions. Sounds great, right? Well, maybe not, because what he reveals later in the book is that the whole study was either self-assessed by the individual or assessed by their bosses. That is hugely subjective. In my opinion, you cannot take subjective data, simply run it through some statistical models, and suddenly say that you have science, ta-da! That is not how science works. You cannot take the subjective data, put raw numbers in and call it objective, because it fundamentally isn't. It is based on a subjective self-reporting. Now, what frustrates me about this book is that it tries to claim to be scientific when actually really it's just a pseudo-science. In my opinion, if you want insights from people who have self-assessed against questionnaires, then you would be much better off reading a book called The CEO Test. That is a fantastic book that shares insights from interviews that the authors have had with leaders, CEOs, and really it's very relatable content to succeeding at work, and I would say that book is much more relevant than this one. So my first big problem with this book is that it's trying to be something that it isn't, and it's not being honest about that. And for that reason, I fundamentally distrust it. My second issue is with the word great. It never really addresses what great is, despite the fact that great is in the title. And I think this is partly because it's so subjective what the definition of great actually means. Like, what does perform at work actually mean? He does talk a little bit about value, but I feel like he kind of skirts around the issue and never really grabs a hypothesis for the definition of great and runs with it, because we know that everyone's definition is going to be different, but you need something to hook the rest of the book off, and I feel like that isn't really there. And this brings me to my final problem with the book. So, if you try to implement the advice he gives, you will hit the law of diminishing returns very, very quickly. Why? Well, what I realised quite early on is that this book is actually just a theoretical, philosophical exploration of what great and performance means at work. It shouldn't be intended as a practical guide, even though that is what it's trying to be. Why is that? Well, Morton is obsessing over how you can get to be in the top 1%, top 5%, maybe even the top 10% if you're really lowering your standards. But what he fails to grasp is that meanwhile in the real world, the corporate and professional working place doesn't actually reward the top 1% or 5% proportionately to the effort you have to put in to get there versus being in, say, the top 10 or 15%. I'll give you an example. In the book he talks about a world-class chess player who was ranked the number 1 player, and I think it was 3 consecutive years. And every year they asked this guy, what's next? And he was like, no, I'm not at the top of my game. I need to keep pushing forward because there's lots I still don't know. Now, theoretically that's very noble to still be at the top, but want to somehow make the first place bar even higher. Whilst that's noble theoretically, that does not translate into the corporate working world. But the thing is, you shouldn't then draw parallels into the corporate working world, because you are going to be disappointed very quickly. You can put in all this effort, you can be that top performer, and you can try to keep raising that bar, but the reality is you will get rewarded very, very similarly to the people who are in the kind of top 10%, top 15%. My opinion is that you would be much better off spending your time doing as few things as you can, but as much as you must, and taking any leftover time and investing it into doing other value-add activities that make you happy, that promote your well-being, that diversify your income streams, whatever it is that's important to you. Simply adding that extra time to obsess over becoming from the top 2% to the top 1%, or making the top 1% bar higher in the real corporate working world is going to show you diminishing returns and may well lead you on the path to burnout. So let's wrap it up here. My overall thoughts on this book are that it's a semi-interesting, theoretical, philosophical, intellectual musing on greatness at work and performance, but 90% of it doesn't translate into the real working world. So you should treat it as a mildly interesting read with a huge pinch of salt and nothing more than that. There are a few useful quotes from the book, but that's pretty much it. Please do drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This book is popular. I found it in Blackwell's in Oxford, so it's in mainstream bookshops. Someone thinks it's popular, but I just don't see it. I actually personally make a point of not reading reviews before I read a book, because I just like to make my own judgments of it. But I did go and have a look at some Amazon reviews just out of curiosity. And I could see that it is actually a very mixed bag of reviews. There are quite a few people who agree with me that fundamentally the data can't be trusted because it's subjective, it's trying to be something it isn't, and therefore it just jars. But there are also people that think it's the best thing they've read since sliced bread. Those reviews don't really ever say why, so I would be quite interested to hear more on that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I've read this book, so you don't have to. You've got all the useful bits now, and if you do decide to read it, you know what to look out for to make sure that you're not wasting your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a while since we've done a book review, so it's nice to be doing them again. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Feel free to comment with anything down below. And of course, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more content like this. Have a great weekend. See you in the next one.